Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of Backchat Valorant Edition, although we haven't done any Backchats for Overwatch. I don't know why I said Valorant Edition. It's kind of useless information, but this episode we've got Sliggy on the show. You've all been clamoring for him. You've been spamming his Twitch chat as well, asking, when are you going to be on Plat chat? Well, he's finally on, and we got him here. You know, he went from player to observer to coach. Maybe there was like some interim. Maybe you were a player in between being an observer and a coach. I'm not sure. I don't know your background. That's why we got you on, to ask you.
Yeah, I played a few LANs in between. I kind of tried to balance the whole player observer thing as much as I could. So yeah. I played some like little public LANs in the UK as competitive as they get. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on as well. Yeah, and I guess we'll jump straight into the first topic that we've got, which is your kind of move, I suppose, from observing to coaching. And that kind of jump for you. And I know you spoke about this in the past as well on Immortal Minds and other stuff as well, but just giving the people some background as well. Like you were a CS observer for a very long time, and the kind of knowledge that is required to, I think, play or to observe at a high level in terms of like understanding how the teams play in CS, you would think that that would have a lot of crossover in terms of like thinking about a game analytically from like a coaching point of view and other things. Yeah. So it's an interesting move. I can't think of anyone else who's done it.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone else. Yeah, I essentially started like 6 years ago. I originally never like planned to do it. I was doing an event. I was like in charge of all the PCs for like a Gfinity event. I was like one of their first CS events, and they actually didn't have an observer. And so I was like, I think I can do it. Like 6 years ago, just like I have no right knowledge, like I can do it. Then I did it. The event went fine. But I remember like the reason I started taking it so seriously. I'm like quite competitive, and I remember there was like a thread on Reddit being like, "Oh, it's quite well done. Like the observing was good." And then I saw the one comment that was just like, "Oh, but it wasn't as good as like Steel, like Josh Nissan who used to do it before."
Yeah.
And then like literally my competitive side just kicked in. I was just like, right. I was like, I'm going for this now. Like I'm just going to commit some time. I'm going to see how good I can get, and then yeah, it just snowballed from there. Like I literally went and learned like 30 overviews on every map. Like I just went really in just for like this one top end, and I was just like, yeah, this is like I just started like I loved it. I just had like my own competition with some of the other observers, like trying to up the level of it. Yeah, I loved it, man.
Yeah, wow. I saw some. I used to keep seeing clips actually posted to the Reddit of these nerdy overviews where they would like pan from one angle to another angle really elegantly over the top of the entire map, and you could only use them if a team did a specific rotation, and then you would use them live in a game, and people would be creaming themselves, which is so unusual. It's not normally a thing that you ever think of as like being some like a skill that people have really developed. Like people appreciate observing, but people don't normally take it to like that nerdy of a level.
Oh no, yeah, I definitely felt like I kind of stepped up everyone's game in terms of like making stuff happen. It was fun, dude. Like I really got into it. Like it just turned into like its own like little mini game inside the actual game itself. And I was like, oh, there's actually like a decent skill to this. Like you can get pretty good in trying to understand stuff. Yeah, and then I kind of just treat it as a game itself, and yeah, try to get as good as possible. And honestly, like creating the best viewer experience that I possibly could. It was quite weirdly satisfying.
So why'd you retire from the game? You made it out while you were on top, move on to a new career path, another field to dominate. You didn't want to observe anymore?
It was a little bit like that. Like I dabbled in some other games. I did like some observing for Overwatch. I did some Overwatch World Cups. I did Rocket League before they had their like auto observer. And then yeah, I kind of in CS I did like 3 majors, and then all that online stuff came. And like I got a big kick out of the majors and like it being live events. And I'd done coaching before in CS, and this game came out, and I was like, I'm switching to this event. Like to this game. I'm going to do this game. Originally, I was like, I'm going to be a player. Like I wanted to be a player, and I was like, let's roll back the years. Let's do it. And then kind of like just realized that I've just had to kind of get a bit of reality check and realize actually I'm pretty inconsistent. Like I'm only good online. I'm really crap on LAN. Like so I kind of just thought, right, let's just focus on the coaching. And yeah, let's just do this properly, and let's just really go for it.
It's kind of cool as well. I imagine that when the Overwatch League started as well, being an Overwatch observer was not something that people had really thought of as being a career, but there's people that have been doing that for like 3-4 years now. It's just a solid job inside the Overwatch League. I got to imagine at some point that it becomes a pretty solid job within the Valorant scene as well, that people can just bop around and do. And it seems like, it seems more of a risk, but more enjoyment potentially for a new field to go into coaching for you.
Oh yeah, so I always used to like try and backseat in terms of like when I was watching games. I was like, oh, you should be doing this. Like I definitely have a good used to be an IGL when I played anyway, and then I had like a good knowledge of the game. So I was like, and then I kind of saw how much depth this game had, and that was like it for me when I kind of saw like all of the different interactions you can have with the agents and the abilities. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have so much fun. Like I'm such a super nerd. Like I love it. I was like, I'm gonna have so much fun doing this. So yeah. Just all over it.
You talked a little bit about Overwatch there, and we all come from, I say Wyatt as well. He dabbled
I had an illustrious 6-month career.
Dabbled very tiny amounts.
You can check my earnings on, what was the old website?
GoSuGamers.com.
Yeah, you can check my earnings on GoSuGamers. I think it's like $23.
Well done. But the role of coaching within Overwatch has been extremely fleshed out. Like there's the strong opinion within the community is that essentially you're not going to be a good team unless you have a good coach, and not just one good coach, but a good coaching staff as well. And it tends to be quite hierarchical. Like the coach is going to decide which players get fielded, going to decide which compositions are going to be run, of course in collaboration with the players. But at the end of the day, the coach has the final say, and the organization empowers them to do that. Which seems to be a stark contrast to how CS has worked for many years, where the coach is kind of brought on, but the players decide whether or not they want to keep them, and the coach offers some input and kind of tries to help the team along. What do you see the role of the coach being in Valorant? What do you see like the job of a coach? What are the responsibilities that come along with that title when it comes to this game?
Yeah, so I was talking about this recently. I kind of think it depends on the team and what the team needs of you. In terms of like where I stand as a coach. Hold up. So where I stand as a coach in terms of I feel like I have to. I kind of feel like it's more me running the team in terms of like I make a lot of the decisions. I think the players have a lot of trust in me, and they're all quite young. They don't have the most experience in terms of in-game leading or like creating strats. So that's more of that's more of my impact in my own team. But I think it kind of depends completely on the players that you have in your team. Like if you have a strong IGL, you probably don't need to look at all this stuff. Like in terms of like if you had like an existence in Nip now, I imagine he's responsible for a lot of the strats. So yeah, I kind of think it's really dependent on the team itself. A lot of it's motivation, trying to get the best out of your players, trying to just constantly keep them professional, which in esports is something that it's a harder task than I realize. Like I kind of forget that everyone's really young, so keeping like this normal professional level is like, come on guys, let's keep it up. Like but yeah, it's a mix of things for just keep everyone motivated, keep everyone on a good level, and trying to just get the best out of your players. But yeah, personally, I kind of take a bit more of I kind of view it as my team in a sense in terms of Liquid. Like I like to have a lot of my stuff my way. I like to just push the boundaries and trying to get the most out of the players and just put them out of their comfort zones and just try a lot of different stuff.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the role will be essential in the future of Valorant? Do you think that player-run teams or teams that just have that single IGL that does everything, do you think they will be as successful as the teams that are coached?
Yeah, I think so. You have strong IGLs, right, who can just carry a team like FNSs and people like that who are just like really strong and maybe wouldn't need a coach as much. But I think it definitely helps having like an extra pair of eyes to just see stuff that's outside of the game, and then just bounce ideas off of. Like I'm not like some people obviously you can be wrong a lot of the time, so sometimes your ideas aren't the best. So having another person with like different ideas kind of counter your idea is always good to have. So yeah, I think it's important going forward. I'm not entirely sure like the stance on what's going to happen with coaches. Like it's different in terms of CS and like League, and it's all different in the game that you coach in at the moment. Everyone has different rules. But yeah, I think it's going to be pretty essential going forwards to have. And I actually think as the game gets more in depth, we'll probably see like coaching staff get bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
Yeah. Would you have any desire as a coach to be in a sort of in-game leading role if the tools were available?
Yeah, if I don't see a world where that would happen with it, but I would love it. Like I personally, that's like where I would want to be. I think that's where I'd thrive the most, being IGLing and just being like having control of the 5 like players, being able to oversee everything and calling, pinging for where things to do. But yeah, I've pretty much come to accept that that's not going to happen. I would love it. I think it would be the best for me and the team. But yeah, I think Riot more likely goes a route of how they treat League.
God, I forgot like pinging exists in this game as well. So if you are IGLing and pinging, you're essentially just playing like a MOBA, controlling your little units around to do
like an
things.
RTS.
Running around.
Yeah, it's like an RTS kind of game for the coach if they did allow that. They could create a whole separate esport that's just the coaches battling against each other.
I think that leads us nicely into the next question topic, I suppose, that we've got, which is like, what are the coaches currently allowed to do in tournaments?
Yeah, this was actually a question that was submitted by one of our viewers as well, from Sick Duck on the YouTube comments on our community page, and they were asking what are coaches actually able to do?
Yeah.
So at the moment, it kind of differs for tournaments. So you have the Riot tournaments where we're allowed to talk only in the beginning of agent select, and then you have 1 pause per map that's like 30 seconds long, and it gets refreshed for every single map. And then there's other tournaments that will have their own rules where I can just talk completely all the time. But like in considering them, I'm kind of focusing more on the Riot rules, so I will actually just try and stick to the rules they set and only call tactical pauses. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure it's just all on them, so we're getting used to the kind of standard that I believe it will be. But yeah, it's pretty much down to the tournament itself.
Do you agree with the standards that Riot has set at the moment? Do you think those are reasonable and good for the health of coaching being in the scene?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a good middle ground, honestly. I think what we were talking about earlier and having me on the server calling, pinging, like I don't think it's a good idea. Like selfishly, I'd love it. It'd be great. But is it a good idea? No, I don't think so. I think just leave it to the 5 players. Like I have my input at certain times. I actually think it's fine. I'm more worried that they might go the opposite way the kind of CS has gone and kind of reduce the amount coaches could do. But I hope we at least get like 1 or 2 timeouts a map and we get some kind of input, because I do believe it's important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So with you saying that if you could, it would be a goal, or it would be good for you to be the in-game leader as a coach if you could, but that is unlikely. How do you create a system within the team where you are still being felt, your input is still being felt during the game, despite you not being able to talk?
So I try and be, especially it's more in prac time, I guess, where I'm trying to be as vocal as possible. It's all about like picking the timings of when I am going to do my tag pauses. I also like to speak to like all of the players individually before I do it and kind of just give them little things to remember. So hopefully things will like trigger midway through and they'll think of things. Yeah, it's quite hard to find when you only can have so much impact from the tactical pauses. It's hard, but more just what I try and do within prac time and just get like constantly just remind them of things. So hopefully it triggers and they can kind of think for themselves a lot more.
I remember when we were talking to Mike, actually, who was like the trial coach for G2. He was saying that the players must call the tactical pause as well. The coaches are unable to call the tactical pause themselves in Riot Run tournaments, which struck me as being a very weird way of running that. Clearly the onus is on the players, but a lot of the time, the players are going to be in their own bubble, and that kind of ability to step back from the situation and assess things from all points of view and from a bit more of an objective stance. The coaches are normally going to be in a better position to time the tactical timeout. What do you think about that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I think I completely agree with you. I think it should be like more on us. In terms of when we're doing it, we kind of like, at least for our tournament, the admin just said if I wanted to pause, I could like poke him or just message him and go for the pause.
Oh, right.
So that wasn't too bad. So that's kind of how the system that we use. So I would literally just message him when I wanted to pause.
Right. Okay. I see. We had a question actually from Mike's after bringing up his name, where it was kind of related to a topic that you just mentioned too, where he said that given the recent drama and literal cheating that's been going on in Counter-Strike during their online era by the coaches, and it wasn't just a few, it was kind of prolific within the scene. Do you think that has swayed Riot's hand in any sense to be either more cautious, hesitant, or just outright remove some of the ability for coaches to be in the game? Like, do you even expect them to go the route of adding a dedicated coaching slot, or do you think that the CS drama has actually forced their hand a little bit away from coaches having that level of impact?
I think they're definitely more cautious. Like, I imagine, at least I hope that's the reason it's taking so long. They want to make sure that there's no holes in it, because if they do it wrong, like it's a absolute minefield, isn't it? They're a lot more hands-on than Valve, so I feel like I have a lot more trust in them. Again, I hope that they take their time. Like we're fine. Like it's not the best situation at the moment, but we can work with what we got. Just take your time, make sure you get it out properly. It's fine, and that it doesn't actually like ruin anything in the long term. Because yeah, the stuff in CS is it's honestly outrageous. It kind of ruins like the history of quite a long time of matches.
I mean, how long was the bug
legacy.
present as well?
I mean, years.
Yeah,
I mean,
years, right?
like 5?
More? I think longer, 6, 7 years almost.
It's kind of absurd.
Yeah. It is ridiculous. Mike also asked, what features would you like to see besides just having a coaching slot within the server? What if you had a bucket list of? Is it a bucket list? That's what you do before you die. Maybe that's the wrong list.
Yeah, a wish list.
Yeah, a wish list.
A wish list.
Yeah. A wish list of things you would want to see them kind of do for coaches.
That's hard on the spot. Let me think. I guess the pinging thing I said earlier would be pretty cool. I think it's probably be a little bit broken if I could ping.
Really.
I'd be super down for
Like
it.
natural selection.
You weren't allowed to talk. You can only ping. You just develop a series of Morse code for communicating with your team.
Yeah, it would actually become that, wouldn't it? So yeah, I doubt that
really
would
good.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure, to be honest. Like, I'm at the point now. So even in like when we had so many best of ones in Europe, I'm at the point now. Any best of 3, we're like, oh, this feels nice. It's kind of the same of just like we have no coach slot. So as soon as I get a coach slot, I'm like, oh, this is like we'll take this. Like this is good. So, yeah. My standards have been set so low that I'll literally take anything. So in terms of extra features, I don't mind, honestly.
Do you have access to? I know in Overwatch there was almost like a coaching renaissance when the Overwatch League came about, with the amount of tools that were available. And I'm talking stuff like there was the overhead map view, which was a groundbreaking thing. There was no mini-map in Overwatch, but it was basically an overview of the map. You could see abilities being used. You could see the ultimates, everything, all timings at one point, but it was essentially blown up. Think of a mini-map, but actually a dedicated thing. So really, really good for the system. And like dedicated stats as well was another big one.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that there's like an API at the moment, but is that anything that you've even like looked into regarding like coaching? Because I know for a fact that there are some coaches in Overwatch as well. They took the API system that Overwatch gave them. They built their own analytical systems of like taking in statistical information from scrims, from their own custom games, and like doing some sort of statistical analysis alongside it. Is this something that you have even looked into, or is this something that you would be interested in the future as well?
Yeah, there's actually a few sites that do it now where you can kind of have like really in-depth heat maps and a lot of additional information. It helps so much. Like it really helps so much just having that much data. And it's the kind of the reason why I was happy in the sense that all of our games went to best of 5s recently in the most recent tournament, because it just means I have more data. I know it means everyone else has more data to look at us as well, but like I'm in the stage where we really need to focus on ourselves. So having that much data in terms of heat maps of like, it's quite obvious where we're going to go at a certain period in time. It really helps. It really helps. So I think it's just in the infancy of it, and I think those tools are just going to get bigger and better. And yeah, it's exciting, honestly.
Mm. What do you think about? And I know you've mentioned this on stream a couple of times before. What do you think about the possibility of Riot adding picks and bans for agents in the future? Clearly, they are planning a ridiculous amount of agents to be in the game a few years down the line. What is it? Is it?
I mean, it's
how many
6 a
per year?
year?
6 a year? It's crazy.
Yeah, in just a few years, it's going to be over 30 agents in 3 years.
Yeah,
That's wild.
that is bonkers.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about that?
So in my head, it's happening. Like I'm kind of the same train of thought where it's just like, yeah, in a few years, there's going to be about 30 agents, like a pick and ban with how similar some of these agents are. Like, and it's quite exciting to watch. It adds an extra element in terms of like the coaching, the analytical stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty confident it's going to happen. It's honestly like my vision in terms of Liquid and how I treat our team. It's very long term. So I'm kind of already. In my head, it's happening 100%. I know it's definitely not confirmed. I'm not confirming it right now. Like I don't know. I just believe that it's going to happen. So that's why I'm trying to make my guys play as many agents as possible. It's one of the big reasons because I need them to be able to do multiple things and say that it gets as big as like I don't think it'll be like 3 bans straight away. But if it ever gets to that stage, I need them to be able to play multiple agents and then say their main gets banned out, they have another one to fall back on, and again like a third. So I'm at least treating my team that pick and ban is going to happen. I'm all over it. I'm in for it. I think it'd be great. I think it adds more tactical depth. I think it'd be good for everyone. Is it too early for it? Yeah, for sure. But in like a few years' time, I think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
There was I was just going to add, there was a general question I believe somebody may have asked. I can't remember who it was, but they were asking about it was quite basic the way they worded it, but I'll try and expand on it as well. But the idea between like creating set plays and adaptability, or like your coaching philosophy that you clearly have, which is focusing on the flexibility of your players, ensuring that they can play multiple roles. How do you balance that as your philosophy? Because there's obviously a lot of teams currently who are not thinking to the future. Player-run teams, and they are essentially one-tricking roles. They're not focusing on the future as much. And as a result, obviously, that gives them, I think, a short-term advantage over teams like yourself, like Liquid, where you guys are focusing a bit more on the future as opposed to the immediate results. How do you balance that as a coach then, coming into the game, coming into tournaments?
I guess not too well, seeing as we haven't got a win. It's probably the answer. I try and balance it as well as possible. I probably do it a bit too much, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But again, short term, obviously I care about the short term, but my main focus, honestly, is on the long term.
Of course, yeah.
So we are taking a bit of sacrifice. I've kind of talked to Liquid about it before in terms of like I'm in this for the long term. Like this is my vision of where it's going, of what's going to happen, and they fully support it. So yeah, it's something that I'm trying to balance. I'm trying to still push people out of their comfort zones, but hopefully not too much that the comp doesn't work and that it's too much for everyone to take. I'm trying to find a happy medium. Maybe sometimes I've definitely pushed it a bit too far. Like maybe the no smoke comp was it was actually pretty good. It wasn't
bad.
It wasn't too bad. It was more as trying to prove a point to our guys that first of all it can work, that anything can work, and second off just like focus on all the stuff that we aren't good at and just make sure that we're better at calling. So yeah, I mean most of the reasons I'm doing stuff does have like in-depth there is a reason for it, but sometimes people just won't see the reason. Sometimes it's not fully obvious.
Yeah. How do you dictate the time management of that? Like in preparation for a tournament, like before this Red Bull home ground, like for instance, ScreaM, he's playing Jett all the time. So you obviously want to get him practice on Jett. How do you then dictate time away from that where he'll be practicing another role in scrims? Like how do you allot that time?
It kind of depends who we're playing in pracs. It depends how close we are to tournaments. It depends what other people want to play. So we've been trying him a bit on Raze as well recently, just to kind of see what it's like, just so that he has it in his wheelhouse. It's honestly, I think we play the most out of any team, at least in Europe. I believe that we play the most out of every team in Europe. So my guys are kind of all on the same page as like we are going to work. Like I like to work hard, so they're going to do the same kind of thing. So we have a lot of time in terms of practice, and I do a lot of the theory crafting stuff outside of the game, and then they all like to play anyway outside of prac. So I'm just trying to not get them to one trick too much, and just play loads. It's the game's so new. Just play loads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mogul, someone sent us a question on Twitter that I think fits in quite nicely here as well, from a guy called Mogul, who said, "Do you think that by having Liquid experiment a lot and be creative in these compositions, that the individual players are like lagging behind a little bit compared to their competition? So, for example, Link, if he just full-time stuck to playing Sage or full-time stuck to playing Smokes, do you think he might look better in the tournaments compared to his current performance, where he has to play, I think it's like 3 agents that he played in Red Bull, maybe it was 4? What is your thought process around like maximizing the mastery of an agent versus the breadth that's required?
Yeah, I think it depends on the agent. I think there's some agents with really high skill caps that you would have to spend longer on other agents to master. So it kind of depends a bit more. I mean, yeah, you could say that kind of some of our players are like jack of all trades in terms of that master of none. But I think like we at least get it to a decent level where we can do it, and then like once we're comfortable, once we've explored a lot of things, we can start mastering it. I mean, I'm definitely going to say in the short term, yeah, it has affected us a little bit. But do I think the real like reap the rewards in the long term? Yeah, I believe so. It's kind of worth.
My question here as well, though, is kind of what is the long term? Like, would you consider the whole of 2021 to be the long term, or are we talking like 3-5 years down the line? Because if you're planning that far ahead, it becomes hard to say that you would have the same roster at that period of time, right?
No, yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. So more long term, when I'm thinking is like end of this year and beginning on. I still think the game's like it's not even been a year yet. I still want to just experiment with stuff. Obviously, for like the big tournaments, we're going to use what we believe is the best for us at the moment. But then we will hopefully, if there's more officials, we'll just use some other stuff to kind of try out some things. Yeah.
Cool.
What's your approach when a new agent is added? Are you dying to get in the server and try to get some scrim time with it, or do you wait a little bit?
Yeah, we normally practice it so we'll go on a server for like an hour with all of our guys, talk about it, and then we'll play it for the day just to see, like, just try and combo it with some stuff. Like the Sky would just try to combo it with a few things used for the breach instead. And just kind of try and work out its weaknesses and just work out how to play against it as fast as possible, just so that we can just pretty much just talk over what we believe its strengths and weaknesses are, and then what we have to look out for if we're ever to play against it. I think that's more of the main thing when a new agent comes out is if we play against this, like how do we deal with it? Is normally our first like train of thought.
Interesting. Yeah, I want us to think now a little bit more retrospective of the 2020 year. And kind of like, I guess, Fish123 and Team Liquid as a whole. And for you personally, what have you learned from that time in 2020 that you're carrying now into 2021? I imagine there was some moments of growth, despite the fact that you'd done coaching previously. It's a new game, it's a new environment, and that comes with it some challenges that you've probably had to overcome and that you're carrying with you into 2021. What kind of knowledge have you learned and are working off the back of now that we're in this new year?
I think the one thing that kind of came to the biggest surprise for me was how long it took for us to adapt from the change of Ardis to ScreaM.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I believe that obviously Ardis and ScreaM, in my opinion, are like some of the best players in EU. I thought it would be a lot easier for us to kind of transition over, and maybe I underestimated the agent pool that came along with Ardis as well. So I think I kind of underestimated in terms of like the extra agent and like the agent pool, and this is kind of where it spiraled to me. Like people need to be good on loads of agents, because if we lose this person who's good at all these agents, like someone needs to be able to cover them and do that, or like say that this type of agents become irrelevant, like Sentinels become irrelevant, they have to then be able to play another side. So I guess it's kind of like the open-minded. That was like it was a good learning process for me to kind of just, I felt it would be like a straight swap in and we'd be absolutely fine. But we had to, it was a bit of a shock to the system of how much we had to change for sure.
Okay, interesting.
When you think back on 2020 in retrospect, how do you feel overall about the year in terms of results, the progress you made, and where you've ended up now early in 2021?
I mean, we started off super hot, right? We went for it really big in Fish 123. That was like the main plan. We wanted to the way we described it at the beginning, as like how I described to the guys, was like when NIP started Counter-Strike, I was like, that's us. I was like, that is what we're going to do. We're just going to be unbeaten for as long as possible. And we're just going to, instead of like, we have a set team, we're all friends, we all believe in it, and let's just really go for it. Like really, really go for it. Let's go to next level. Let's learn lineups for everything. Like we had Boombot lineups for Raze like way before everyone.
Oh, yeah.
I believe we defined the meta in a few maps quite early on, especially on like Bind and stuff. And I think we kind of, safe to say, we abused the Raze and Sage being super strong before they got nerfed for quite a long time. Yep. So yeah, Fish 123 was great. And then Liquid, yeah, I felt like it was going to be the same with Liquid. It just took us so long to get to a decent level. I kind of, because we had put so much time into doing like the basics and the fundamentals and everything in Fish, to kind of like redo everything. Yeah, I guess I didn't realize how much work we'd put in at the beginning. But it was been a good learning year for us for sure. Like progress, as long as I can see progress every single event, like I'm happy. And we've learned a lot. The players have learned a lot, and that's all I care about.
Up until, I mean, maybe also including First Strike, but we'll get onto that. But if we just focus on the Ignition series for a while, it seemed like it was very easy to look at Liquid on paper and feel like it was a string of failed results. And we kept saying on the show, they have been plagued by the BO1, the menace of BO1 tournaments that there were in EU. And it was frustrating for us to look at your team and realize there was great talent, and see you in the server and see that there was certainly potential, and then see you guys kind of hit hurdles and stumbling blocks and kind of on paper never reach that success. What was it like during the team environment at that time? I imagine it was kind of hard to maintain a winning mentality when you are just running into BO1 loss after BO1 loss.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time, we used it as a bit of an excuse at the beginning. Like you can say it for a few times, like best of one, it's fine, best of one at a time. And then there was a few times where like we kind of had to look at it and I was like, guys, we were actually like the worst team here. Like I think we actually like deserve this. Like these guys were better than us like this time. So there were definitely a lot of the times we could blame it on the best of one, but there's a few times where we had to kind of look at it and be like, guys, we need to step up. I do wish it's so weird in Europe right now. There's not enough tournaments. There's not enough tournaments. It's so hard to grasp where everyone stands. Like even our game against Heretics in First Strike, it was so close. Like I believe we were the better team. I believe we lost because of our mistakes. So it's like
1-2v5.
Yeah, right. That's like our specialty at the moment.
Losing 2v5s.
Oh yeah, it's not good. We've had a few always bind 2v5s. It's like a thing that we've done like 3 times in a row or something outrageous. It's really not good. But yeah, I don't know, best of ones, it sucks. It would be nice to have more tournaments, but you can only play what's in front of you. So I didn't want to use it as an excuse too much, even though I do think it is valid a lot of the time.
Yeah, they've also been the creator. These BO1s and the lack of tournaments have just spun and created many strange narratives. Many that we don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah.
That we've talked about.
And some that I'm sure we've perpetuated.
Mainly the one I'm thinking of now is this idea that there was like the Liquid redemption between First Strike and Red Bull. That this was some sort of redemption arc.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions saying, how did you turn around the team from First Strike to Red Bull?
Yeah.
And that doesn't fit with what we have been saying on the show, because every time we talk about you guys playing against Heretics, Wyatt makes sure to remind everyone you guys were one round away from winning that series.
1-2v5.
Yeah.
That's it.
But how do you feel about it? Like, what do you feel like the correct narrative is around Liquid during that period of time?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about the whole turning it around thing. Like, I believe that our game against Heretics, like I said, was super close. We could have won it. We haven't had a chance to play G2 for a long time. We hadn't had a chance to play Summon, FPX for a long time. So it's like, even though we personally felt we were better than these teams, we didn't have the chance to do it. And because we lost to Heretics, we just didn't get a chance at all. So it's just like it's just really odd. It really is odd. And like, if you tried to get me to kind of put Europe in like a ranking list, I would struggle so much, just because there's just not enough data at all.
Yeah.
In terms of turning around, yeah, I think we had a better event, but it's just like, I don't believe it's so weird how people like spin it to be like, oh, like now you guys are really sick, but it's like, actually, like, I felt like we were pretty good before, we just messed up a bit more. Yeah.
Well, you just got a little bit unlucky running into the eventual champions of First Strike, in the first round of the actual main event.
I want to dig into that game a bit more, though, too. And maybe talk about, if we dial back like pre-First Strike, Liquid's coming in. You guys have got a different vision. I'd heard you talking on stream a lot about like watching Vision Strikers, believing that the flash and dash was like the meta at the moment. And so it didn't surprise me whatsoever when I saw Eccles back on Breach and ScreaM running Jett. I mean, perhaps ScreaM Jett is a little surprising because he hadn't really played any of it up until that point. But the idea made sense from knowing you and knowing what you valued at that period of time. What was your thought process heading into First Strike and like crafting the team and the setup and the style that you guys ran?
Yeah, I watch a lot. I watch a lot of stuff. Vision Strikers, I believe, are just like, dude, they're so innovative. They're like, I love taking loads of their stuff. I pretty much, all of our stuff is like a good mix of my own stuff, and then I just watch loads of demos and I'm like, yep, I'm taking that, and I'll just steal loads of different things. And like, if I just see a new team playing like the similar comp or same comp to us, I'm like, okay, I should probably watch this VOD to see what they're doing. We have our own style of play, but then the main thing that we lacked was a lot of what Vision Strikers were doing, and like aggressive defensive strats where they would just push certain places with flash dash, like you're saying, and that was like literally what we needed. So I was like, we can just handpick this, put it straight into us. It was like a blessing trying to get a deal off of Reyna, because I wasn't the biggest fan. Obviously, he's like the best person to make Reyna work, but I wasn't the biggest fan of what Reyna adds in terms of her kit. Like, if a deal isn't popping off, which pretty much never happens, like, he can't add too much in with the Reyna, like you only have 2 flashes, but with a Jett you can like make loads of space. So looking at the kind of Vision Strikers and how they played, I was like, this pretty much works for us. Like, they have a lot of it was pretty similar to the comp we liked anyway. It had a lot of the agents that we liked, like Eccles loves playing on the Breach, and the real main thing was just trying to put ScreaM on Jett and just being like, I remember literally, it was the beginning. I struggled a little bit trying to persuade him to play other agents, and I was just like, a deal. I was like, trust me. I was like, you're gonna get like 30 to 40 kills every single game. I was like, everyone you face is gonna be full blind. I was like, I promise you. I was like, I'm gonna go really hard. We're gonna flash dash. You're gonna dash in. They're gonna be blind. You just shoot them. I was like, you're gonna have 30 kills every single game. I promise you. And then literally in the pracs, I was just like, oh my god, please. Like, I hope he pops off. And then like he starts getting better and better with it all. And I was just like, oh my god, okay, we're onto something here. It's fine. We did it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun watching so many. So it's fun watching so many regions and taking all of their stuff. There's so much good stuff that happens from all of these teams. So yeah, it's fun to learn.
It is interesting that you mentioned that was what you said to ScreaM, because another big narrative that was around your game against Heretics was that ScreaM dropped 60 and they still couldn't win. And when you look at the VOD, Eccles is like a little pet pop flasher running around behind. It's like ScreaM's got a dog on a leash and he's just running behind him, flashing him into everywhere. And it feels like you couldn't have set up ScreaM better for the kills that he received. Now, Bind was a little, in my opinion, Bind was a bit of a difference because ScreaM felt like, when I was watching it, it was like ScreaM felt like he had to face everybody possible on defense and he wasn't as well set up. But when it came to, what was it, Split and Haven that you guys were playing? I think those were the other two. No, Split and Ascent. Yeah, you're playing Ascent right now. I got it in front of my brain and I still got it wrong. But when you're playing on Split and Ascent, he's just flashed into every position and set up for all of the kills. What do you think the balance is there between like letting one guy feast and I suppose my real question is, how much is it him being good and how much is it the team setting him up? Like, where do you feel the credit is due and in what proportion?
Yeah, it's a good question. So a lot of our, again, I sometimes hyper focus on what we're doing. So a lot of our style of play and how we were like approaching this event was just we enable like ScreaM to just pop. Like that is what our comp is. We enable him as best as possible, and then the rest, like he goes in, he does a lot of damage, and the rest pick up the pieces. I think we achieved that. But maybe the picking up of the pieces wasn't as strong as it needed to be. So that's kind of why we're trying to enable the other guys a bit more. It's probably why you would have seen less flash dashes in terms of this event.
Yeah, I did notice that.
We're kind of trying to literally hyper focus on the complete opposite now of like, right, let's try and a deal. We know we can do this. We know we can rely on this. Now let's try and get it from these other guys. Let's try and like have another game style that we can fall back on, and then eventually we can like merge them all together. That's kind of like the long plan. In terms of like the Heretics game in First Strike, we honestly, the thing that owned us a little bit was we hadn't played against Sage for so long, and it was hard for us to get pracs against Sage. And we just overfought it a little bit, and we played like retake in overtime with no ults, which is like a no-no. Yeah, honestly, I do believe that whole game was just like a misplay from us, so that's why it kind of hit a little bit harder.
Yeah. Before that game, going into it, what can you really do to prepare against Heretics, and like how do you rate them going in? Have you ever practiced against them previous to that? Or I mean, there's not a lot of tape out of them out there to really review. Like, what's the strategy going into it? Muted.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, there we go.
I think I'm back. I literally went into Immortal Minds like a week before, and then I was literally talking about Heretics because we played them quite a bit in prac, and I was like, I feel sorry for the team that has to play Heretics. Like they're like the underdogs, and then literally like I wake up the next day and I'm just like, oh, come on, man. Like I was like, I shouldn't have said that. I knew that was going to happen. I kind of sealed my own fate there. But yeah, dude, we played them in prac. They're like really impressive. They're a really good team. They just have a different style it's hard. It's hard in this game when you practice people. You want to practice people the same style as them. So the prac before the game when we're playing them, I'm trying to like ask all of the teams, so like, do you play Sage? Like, are you playing Sage on this map? And we're trying to find people that are playing a similar style with them to get the right practice that we need to do against it. And yeah, it was hard for us. And yeah, we struggled against it.
Has that match been any of the inspiration as to the return of the Link Sage? So Link Sage was gorgeous in the Red Bull tournament. I was really impressed the whole way through, especially the Haven map against G2. The value he was getting out of his utility was it was absurd. He was shutting down every single A push.
Yeah, I think, again, something you may have noticed from the Home Grounds tournament is just like a few more comfort picks from some of the players in terms of soulcas, Raze on Icebox. And yeah, like you said, Link back on Sage. So yeah, it was just a mix up of just me kind of like talking to the guys of just like, okay, like let's give you guys some time on this. Let's show that you can do it. And again, just focus on a different play style of more It's not the whole ScreaM show, and that the other guys can actually do what they need to do. It's definitely a different style of play that we do with it, but it's honestly it's nice to have them on some comfort picks, and it's horrible when I read loads of things about like, oh, this guy's like sucking, like this guy needs to be kicked and stuff, and it's just like, like I'm like, you don't realize how hard it is, like what I'm doing to these guys in terms of me trying to get them to change their roles so often. Like that's hard, is to be like a master of an agent in like 2 weeks before this event. It's hard, like it is hard. So it was nice to get them on their comfort picks, and kind of see what they can do.
Do you step in then as a coach a little bit, like referring to sort of the public narrative, and you got to cut soulcas after the Heretics loss? Is that a time where you kind of step in as the coach, provide some positive reinforcement to your players?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have talks with them. I had a lot of talks with them, and definitely had a lot of talks with Dom afterwards. He's quite like an emotional guy. He takes things to heart quite a lot, so I knew he wasn't going to take that back. Sorry, he was going to take it quite bad. I don't know if you guys saw, there was like a Richard Lewis video on him as well, where he went in on him pretty hard, which I believe some of the stuff, I do think he went over the top for sure, but I think some of the stuff like Dom needed to hear, and I think it was part of the reason that he kind of came out fighting. So I was actually like, obviously it's horrible to hear all the things that came out, but do I believe he needs to hear it? Yeah, I do believe he needs to hear it. Has he come out of it like on top? Yeah, I believe so. I think it's been really good for him. I think it might even be one of those things where he looks back in a year and he's actually like grateful that Richard Lewis did this video, and in terms of like, this was a turning point for me. Like a few things he's saying, like he is right. I need to, like, my emotional stuff, like I need to just kind of turn that off. I need to be a bit more professional, like I was saying earlier, and just kind of like really go for it. So yeah, I think it was a hard time for him. Really happy he kind of came out on top. I was really impressed with him this event. So yeah, dude, I'm super proud of him, to be honest. It was nice to watch him kind of, he always pops off in prac, and then in officials, sometimes, not all the times, because again, I'm putting him on like Sova and stuff. It's just not the same as what he would do in prac, but it was really nice to see him, even on comms and stuff that you guys couldn't hear. Like it was like the best he's ever sounded. So yeah, I was really impressed. I'm glad he's kind of come out the other side of this well.
That's really interesting to hear, actually, because I think a lot of people forget that with all of the discussion about CS pros moving over to Valorant, some of these CS guys are really like low levels, or I don't mean that in terms of they're bad, but I mean they didn't have time in the spotlight. They're young. They haven't had time to mature. They haven't had this level of attention before. They haven't had this level of expectation before. And this goes beyond just soulcas as well, but it's a maturation process, and dealing with the spotlight being on you to a larger extent than some of them will have ever experienced, despite the fact that they are at least tenured somewhat within another competitive scene. And I think people just completely forget that as well, and expect them to be as professional as people that have already been in those situations. It's something you only learn from experience.
Yeah, like in CS, they only had like probably as much as experience in terms of top level, the same as me, just like UK kind of lands. That's as far as the UK ever really got. So in terms of like being in the limelight all the time, we're not like, it's still something that's really new for these guys. They have a lot of learning to do. And yeah, it's I think it's good for them to just be chucked in at the deep end. These things happen. I think I remember something similar, like Foreign used to called out config one time, did like a video on it, and they kind of completely changed config around in terms of the CS player, and he like came out on top. And so it's kind of what I referred to Dom as well, and just being like, look, mate, like this is a good thing for you, like it's a good turning point. Just focus on yourself, and like it's kind of sink or swim in terms of is he gonna let it get to him, or is he just gonna come out swinging? So yeah, it's I believe it's a good thing that happened.
What do you think about the soulcas experiment on Sova in general? Because to me, when I look at soulcas, Raze looks excellent. I mean, one of the best Razes in Europe. His Phoenix, when he played it for that small amount of time, actually kind of popped as well. I was impressed with soulcas playing the Phoenix. I thought his utility usage was really good too. I was loving the way that he was playing the Sky recently as well. But whenever I watch him play Sova, feels like something hasn't really clicked with him. Like that is not the role that I've genuinely in all of his performances never really thought that he played that role particularly well. And yet he seems great when he plays a bunch of other stuff. What do you think about? What's your opinion on like the soulcas Sova experiment? Is it something that's continuing until he gets the hang of it, or was it something that kind of failed and is now going off in a different branch?
Yeah, it's one of our aspects where we've been like, right, let's try some people on Sova, and just it's one of those agents that takes a lot of time, a lot of time. You got to learn a lot of lineups. I think I'd strongly believe that his Sova on Ascent is really good. When we were trying it on Bind, definitely it's something that he was struggling with. And he would tell me that he doesn't feel super comfortable on it. So it's just something. The agent's so strong, right? And this is another thing where I want people to be playing a lot of different agents. Like the agent is so strong right now. I believe it's like top 2 in terms of Sova and Jett. I believe like the top 2 agents. So to not use it on like a good map like Ascent and Bind, it's really hard. It makes life so much easier. I mean, you can win games without it, but it does make life a lot easier. But yeah, it's one of those things that I think maybe it just takes a lot of time to get good with it. He definitely didn't. You're right. I mean, he didn't feel super comfortable with it. I think he's got comfortable on the Ascent, playing Sova on Ascent, and then the other maps. Yeah, we're gonna have to figure something out where it's maybe it needs more time, because like the Ascent got there, maybe we didn't give enough time. But yeah, I fully agree with you. And he's more than happy to say that he doesn't feel super comfortable on those maps. But again, this is one of the things where we don't have someone who's like proficient in it. So I needed him to step up, and I believe in Ascent he steps up for a bit. And then our Bind is just something else that we need to tackle at one point, because it's in a really bad spot, like a really bad spot.
That's a good segue. I was about to ask, in the narrative in my mind when I watch Liquid, one of the main things keeping you back from more success is the map pool, and namely Bind. When you are looking at the team, what do you feel the current issues are? What is holding Liquid back from getting that last map win and winning a title?
So yeah, Bind in general it's a weird map for CS players, because normally CS players, you're not that proactive on the defensive side, and some of these comps that people are bringing out, especially the Summon FC comp, the no Sentinel but Viper and Brimstone comp, where you just delay the plant. You have to literally treat your defensive side like your attacking side. It's like you have to stop them from planting. You have to stop them from executing. It's not natural for 5 CS players to do that. We talked about it before, but it's just we struggle with it straight up. And I think that's something that we're struggling with in Bind in general. Is it kind of plays different depending on who the opponents pick in terms of agents. So it's like a lot of maybe adapting we're not the best at. So yeah, dude, I think I know what we need to try. But yeah, it just needs some more time. Again, it's just not a favorite map for us. I don't mind going out there and saying this would normally be our ban map, but it's an event with a best of 5, so we have to play it.
The other team can just straight up pick it as the second map or first map as a home ground, and then it's like, oh cool, got to play Bind immediately.
Speaking of maps, I quite enjoyed your game versus G2 on Icebox in particular. Icebox, I feel like, is something that a lot of teams have been, I think, neglecting to do their homework on, is the best way to put it. But your game versus G2 was, I think, really opened up at least my eyes finally to seeing it being played well, beyond the point of like the typical zug orc strategy of rushing one side or the other. You know, you just not really too much nuance to it, but it was clear to me watching your game that there was some sort of evolution of the meta that had developed that we hadn't seen on camera. Like, you could tell that something had happened in scrims to essentially lead to now this Viper mirror, the Sage being played a lot more, the kind of this idea, this concept of essentially playing retakes with a lot of stall, a lot of Molotovs, a lot of those abilities that can really keep people off the bomb site when you're playing those post-plant scenarios. What was that? I suppose, like, how has it even got to this point? Like, where Icebox now is like, I would say that your team is one of the best in the world at this map. Would you agree with that, I suppose, is the general gist of the question?
Yeah, so I actually openly on my stream used to say, like, I believe at the moment, like even before when it was in First Strike, I was literally like artists and all the people were in my chat. I was like, players on Icebox. I was like, we're good at Icebox. I was like, I'm not even just saying it. I was like, artists. I was like, players on Icebox. Like, I dare you, if I ever play you, players on Icebox. And like, I believed at the time that we were playing the best meta. I felt like, obviously, this was kind of like the general meta in Europe, but I feel like we had talked about the defensive side instead of just the attacking side in terms of where you're like delaying a bit more. I think this will always be one of our strongest points. When there's a new map, like I will spend a lot of time going over it. Again, I'm looking at this map. It's like 10-second rotate from one side to another with your knife out. Obviously, you should be playing delay if there's a 10-second rotate with your knife out. It would take like 14 seconds with a gun to clear angles, and then there's only a set amount of time. You stall the plant for a long time. Like, this is how this map should be played, just because the rotates are so big. So I believe that like this is where we'll thrive in terms of new maps get added in. I believe that we'll be or like work out how the meta is kind of how I believe we did it in the beta as well. But yeah, dude, Icebox is fun, man. We all enjoy Icebox.
It makes sense though as well. I mean, it's funny you said that you're thinking about the map in terms of the size of it and how that's affected your kind of style that you're playing on it. But when I saw the agents you guys were playing, and like on the other side of things as well, I immediately thought of like the Viper walls and the Sage walls as to literally you're partitioning up the map. One of the main complaints is that this map is just kind of designed poorly. There's elements of it that make it very hard to digest as a player, both on the attack and defense side. But you kind of mitigate that completely, or you just change the way the map plays completely by introducing the Viper wall, the Sage wall to block off areas of the map. But you kind of like, you're coming from the perspective where you were thinking about it in terms of rotation timings and the delay composition overall as well. It's interesting, honestly. Do you think that kind of derives from, I suppose, our earlier talks as well, where you were saying about your overall philosophy, which is the experimentation aspect with playing multiple different heroes? Does that play into that fact?
Yeah, I think so. I'll actually say, I think the Sage, so I actually think we got owned on Ice. So we were owning people on Icebox, and everyone was playing like the Viper in EU, that was the meta. And then we played, I think we were using Sova instead of Sage at one point. And then we got owned by a Sage, and I was like, oh guys, we've been so dumb here. Like, we need this. Like, we need this. This is the missing piece. So that was more like, that was more just us taking it off someone else. I think it was like Wave, maybe we stole it. So cheers for that, guys.
Really nice.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, what was the period of time to where you came to that conclusion and started running the Viper Sage? Do you remember about when that was?
Pretty early. We like within the first week. Yeah, we played it.
We just haven't been seeing it.
I mean, this is killing me because I've been watching this. I've been watching NA Icebox for months, and I can't take it anymore. I can't take it. This game saved me. He saved my brain.
Yeah,
it was turning to mush because I mean, really, the only team that has gone some way in that development is Andbox. They're
TSM.
Or and TSM as well, right? Yeah. TSM finally and Andbox have been running the Viper for a while.
As soon as we started this tournament and G2 and NIP played on Icebox and they ran mirror comps of Viper and Sova and Sage, I knew that there had been like massive internal scrim development in Europe because you never would see a mirror comp of those two comps unless people have already figured it out in scrims for weeks or like at least a week. And it's so frustrating for that to happen no tournaments to show it.
It's shocking how quick the meta had developed in Europe versus NA had been playing it on stream and
battering their heads into walls.
Yeah, just inting into A.
Yeah. It is very interesting.
I had to ask, but
you guys also made some interesting developments on some of your other maps as well. We've already kind of talked about Bind, but you guys are running a similar composition on Bind as you are on Haven, where you're running the Sage and the Sky together. Now, you talked a bit about people being on their comfort roles, soulcas referring to the returning to the Raze, and Link returning back to the Sage too, but soulcas moving to the Sky on Haven and on Bind as well, right? I think he plays that on Bind too.
Yeah,
that's really different. And it feels like you guys have put in some significant work on Haven particularly to get big value out of that agent, which a lot of people have been experimenting with her and found very little success. There's a couple of NA teams that do it as well. Crashies and Cutler have tried recently, but you guys have found the most you guys have the best vision with her at the moment within that map on Haven, as far as I've seen. What was the impetus to try and make use of her 3 months after she's been released?
Yeah, so it was one of those agents that soulcas actually liked, and he was like, I've been playing in ranked quite a bit, I like it. And I was like, okay, like I pretty much said, like, if you guys like playing agents, like just let me know, because I can try and do stuff with that. So yeah, it was more him just being like, I like this agent, and I was like, I believe it's better than the breach I think breach is great on Haven, to be fair, but I was like, I think it's better than the breach in terms of just the information that it gathers. And again, we don't have any good Sova players, so that was like a big it's the Sova and breach, like in the middle ground of them. It's like the best you can get. So I was like, okay, this works pretty well for us at the moment. So yeah, we focused a lot on our defensive side. I do think we use it the best defensively. I think attacking we're still lacking a bit, but
Yeah.
that was more just a timing thing of terms of we really focused on the defensive side, and then originally our attacking was quite good, so I thought we would be able to like not have to I thought we'd be better off than we were, I guess. So yeah, they definitely need to go to the drawing board. I mean, this event was great in terms of learning what we need to, kind of just confirming in my head what we thought were our weak points. So yeah, we're gonna try and get better at using the sky and attack. But yeah, I think on the defense, I feel like we've used it pretty well, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I would. I mean, that all adds up to me watching the game using the. You had mentioned this earlier on the show, but it was really impressive using the sky flashes to gather info when players were getting close and short or long, and then using the Sage utility immediately after to just nullify the push. Just cut it off on one of the ends.
Yeah. So you don't end up just throwing your Sage utility out willy-nilly. You've always got information on the timing with which to use it. And it just makes Link look like a god because he's just using it at the perfect timings to ruin these pushes into A. Yeah. It was very impressive. And then you guys utterly fumbled it on attack sometimes.
Yeah, dude. We when someone started doing the aggressive stuff, we were talking about, we're like, guys, we played them in prac, we know they're super aggressive, it's fine, just wait back. And then like we still got absolutely wrecked of how good it is. Like their defensive side it's like the most aggressive we've played out of any team.
Yeah, they push out of A into Garden, and they just keep pushing into your spawn with flash.
It's crazy. Like, yeah, literally like 10 seconds in, they're in your spawn dueling you, and it's just like, we're like, this is not normal for us. It kind of threw us off a little bit for sure. So shout out for them. Like, it's cool that they're doing stuff like that as well. Like, they're a great team to play against. They bring some cool stuff to the table.
Yeah. We had a question from Alanix2242 from the YouTube comments, who is talking about whether or not you view the ScreaM Jett experiment as a success. And we've talked about that already a little bit so far, but with the nerf to Jett too coming through, what is kind of the future of that? Do you still think that Jett with the 4-second smokes is going to be a meta-defining agent for ScreaM to continue to play? We saw him pick up the AWP a couple of times, even though there were kind of rumors swirling that he might be doing it way more than that. Can you walk us through some of those aspects?
Sure. So the nerf, I was kind of calling for this nerf because in terms of where, like, the Jett, this is how she used to be originally, right? I think it's like 4.5 seconds, because that's how she was in the beta, and then they buffed her to give her longer smokes. I was kind of calling that they did this too early and that they should have reverted it. So I'm happy that they did. Does it affect the way that Adil plays the agent? Not too much. Like, as long as they don't change the ult and the fact that he can one-tap with the ult, we're fine. And the smoke will still like cover, say you throw it at a recon, like a Sova recon, it will still cover it for the 3 pulses, so it's still fine. You can still get half a tap of the spike. It doesn't affect as too much, like honestly, in terms of the nerfing Jett, this was like for us personally the kind of best way they could nerf it. And I think also for a viewer experience, probably the best, because it's fun watching a Jett pop off. Like, it's fun. I think that all is a little bit OP, but it's fun for a viewer experience. So I'm glad this is enough that they went for. In terms of Adil AWPing, ScreaM AWPing, so it's literally, dude, I'm trying to give this guy as much freedom as possible, and I've been like, he will never do it on attacking side. Well, maybe he will, but he has the freedom if he wants to do it on the attacking side, but he hasn't chosen to yet. In practices, we're literally being like, Adil, like, your agent's great. You can take a shot, you can dash out if you miss, and if you don't want to use the AWP, like, you can just throw it to someone else. Like, everyone in our team can opt to a different level. I've pretty much made them be an operator probably at some point in our team, just because we don't have like a main operator player. So I was like, Adil, if you want to start going for it. And honestly, he's been popping off in prac a few times with it. I believe we're going to see it. You'll probably see it a bit more. And it's not one of those things where I'm just like, oh, Adil, like, you should be buying it. But more like, if it's on the floor, it's so expensive that it just seems that we should be trying to use it. And the fact that you can have a dash that gets away on his agent, he can hit shots, dude. He's like, this guy's been playing CS for so long. This guy's so sick. He can hit shots. Like, I know it wasn't the best on Icebox there, but he got unlucky in terms of they didn't go to his site. I think you'll see it a bit more. But like, don't worry, I'm not being like, oh, you're now an operator player. I'm just saying, there's one on the floor, let's pick it up, let's give it to Adil, like ScreaM. He can take the shot, he can dash away, give it to someone else, or keep it if he wants to. Like, we give him a lot of freedom. He can kind of do what he wants, and he's very confident in his ability to use it. So yeah, I like that he likes to bring it out. He put it out on Haven, it was fun.
I kind of love that. It's like you just you're scavenging in the trash to find an op. You're like, we're not going to deliberately buy a TV, but if we find one lying around outside, I guess we'll use one.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, though, is that you mentioned that it is an expensive weapon. Do you find that it's almost too expensive? The price point that it's at with the 5K, I mean, that is over 50% of your max
that is crazy.
Money that you can hold on an individual player. Is that too expensive to build around? Some teams have made it their strategy where they will make it an important point for them. They weigh it pretty heavily in the matches in terms of getting an operator in someone's hands early enough. But it's still a very powerful gun. But clearly you think that there's almost like a line that is drawn where it is too expensive to be playing around entirely.
Yeah, so I think it is really, the problem with it is that in a Jett's hands, with someone that's good, it's too strong. So it kind of has to be ridiculously expensive, so teams get punished if they lose it or whatever. So is it too expensive? No, I don't think so. Not for how good it is in a Jett's hand, but in terms of like, if the Jett dash got nerfed somehow, and then I would agree with you. But it's just the fact that you're seeing like these Wardells that are just dominating people with it. And, it's like, we don't have that in Europe. We don't get to experience that, so that's great. That we get to avoid that, so we don't see it in this like full power. But yeah, it is just a little bit too strong. So I actually kind of fine with it being how it is. Maybe that's kind of selfish because we don't have many operator players in our team. We're kind of cycled through a lot of people. This is does it hurt us not having an operator player? I do believe so. I think it's one of the reasons we struggle quite a bit on bind as well, and sometimes defensive side of Ascent. So it's part of the reason I've been asking Adil to ScreaM to use it if he wants to, just to kind of see. Like, I know he can hit the shots, just kind of see if it gives us that extra edge. It just makes it a little bit easier in terms of if it can be bought out. Sometimes people are going to use utility more freely to clear people off corners. When you play against us, you know there's not going to be an operator player holding a corner, so you have to use less utility. So like it does hurt us not having one, for sure.
That was actually a question that we had in a YouTube comment. Do you think that not having an operator hurts Liquid? And I want to transition that into talking about the reports of JUGi kind of trialing, scrimming, whatever the kind of terminology was that was used in that report. And when we were discussing it on Platchat, we just assumed that because the wording that was used was like trialing, and the report also said that like Eccles and soulcas had been benched for a small amount of time to try JUGi out. We thought it was like you had no intention of changing the roster, but then the Liquid organization had come and they were like, hey, this guy's available, you should try him out and see whether it works. But apparently it was actually your idea to run this experiment.
And I think it was also directly, Sliggy was part of the reason why we were convinced that our tinfoil theory was true.
Yeah.
Because you had said that you didn't want to change the roster after first strike, and then that happened. And we're like, no, it can't be. It must be the higher ups. We had the tinfoil hats on, and we were just wrong.
Yeah.
I literally watched it as well. You guys are like, "There's no way he'd do that." Okay, sorry guys, but yeah, no. Again, it kind of goes back to me trying to work out how much does it hurt as not having an operator player. So I wanted to. It was Dom's birthday, so we weren't gonna play. So then I was like, okay, let's do it instead of Dom one day, and then Echoes as well. We wanted to try with Dom as well to just kind of see how it plays with just multiple people, in terms of like different calling styles as well. So yeah, we tried it twice for 2 days in replace of them, more to just kind of see how it kind of impacts our teams. Do we need an operator player? Like, is it something that we are missing? Like, it's a question that, like, it's a great question. Like, and unless I try it, I don't know the exact answer. Like, it's great for me to be like, no, it's fine. It's like, but like, I don't know for sure. So yeah, I mean, all the reports are true, but yeah, when they're there, like saying it's trialing and stuff like that, it's more just me, just like testing
Running sick social experiments on your team.
Yeah, a little bit. But like JUGi's great, man. This guy's awesome. So he was really cool with it. Like he likes the experience, wanted to come try it out because he was tempted to do Valorant anyway. So he was great with it all. So and yeah, we talked to all the players and stuff about it. They were all very aware what was going on. So
okay, how do you contrast that to your time? I want to say like 3-4 months ago, something like that, when Link was playing operator way more than he had previously done. Like, he started picking up the AWP when he was playing Sage. He started picking up the AWP for a while when he was playing Jett, I want to say, as well. Or was it Sova or something? I can't remember. But Link was up in
Jett, yeah.
Right. Link was up in for a serious amount of time, and he looked at some point seriously good with it too. He had some like great clutch moments. He had more of kind of the safe kind of up where he would hold an angle while other people pushed up, and it was more that he was locking down an area rather than being dynamic and trying to force the fight. But what was the results of these series of experiments to try the op in different people's hands?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just led us to the point where ScreaM's using it. Like, I do think it's a big reason our bind, like the games that we played with JUGi on bind, like it helped so much in terms of our defensive sides. Like, our defense sides is normally pretty good, but it just makes it so much easier just having people scared of these angles. The reason like Link was using it so much is more like it was before the nerf, right? It was before the money update, so it was like really, really strong. So we kind of had to use it for how cheap it was. Like we have to be using this kind of like if it's so strong in this game, you just have to use it. So yeah, we were kind of like, right, we have to do this. And then the nerf came in, and that was like great for us because we're kind of like, I kind of had to talk with Link and be like, do you want to be using this, or like are you wanting to rifle? I was like, 'cause it's kind of expensive now. And then so we kind of came to the point where it's like, at least on attacking sides, let's not use it. And then like if there's one on the floor, like you can pick it up. And then defensive sides, depending on the comp we're playing, and like playing against, then you can use it. But yeah, I mean, Link's pretty good with operator as well. So this is what I mean in terms of if a ScreaM buys one, he can just throw it to one of our guys because they're all actually pretty good. And coming from CS, like the AWP's a lot faster, and in this game, everyone moves a lot slower. So it is a little bit easier, in my opinion. So
yeah.
What out of curiosity, what agent did you have JUGi playing when he was hopping?
So we had Jett, so he was playing. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to get the full experience of the OP. Yeah. So yeah, he was playing Jett, and then we had ScreaM on. ScreaM was on Raze most of the time, and then sometimes a few times Reyna, just to relive the glory days.
You're over the Reyna. That one's done. That one's that's in the history books.
It's in the back pocket, right?
Sure.
It's there. It's there if we need it.
Right. That's the same as the history book. You scroll back through the annals of time in order to find what's previously available. I want to talk about this year, 2021. You guys have started with a pretty, I mean, is it your best result for like since you were Fish 123? I think it probably is, right? A grand finals performance.
Yeah, it's our first final in Liquid, so.
I'm assuming that your intention is to be the best team in Europe for 2021. I mean, that seems like a reasonable aspiration for Liquid, having been one map away from winning this tournament recently, and you were really close to Heretics last year. So I think it'd be quite boring to ask you, like, oh, what are you aiming for this year? But what I want to ask is, like, how are you going to get it done? Like, what do you think you guys need to do, or what do you think you need to focus on to be able to win champions in 2021, or at least be the best team that comes out of Europe with the best chance to win champions? Is it the flexibility? Is it the adapting to agents really quickly? Is it mastering a certain style? What is the focus that's going to lead you to winning champions next year or this year?
I mean, hopefully it's a bit of like what you said in terms of mastering a certain style, but hopefully mastering multiple styles that we can be a bit more unpredictable. Because I find our attack side is very predictable at the moment. So yeah, I think it's just kind of like I was saying, addressing earlier, like just getting hyper focusing on all of these certain points and like bursting or like defaulting or flash dashing, and then just finding the perfect middle ground. And then just being able to adapt on the fly. There's so much in this game that you have to do. Reactional players is really important. And when I say reactional players, just like how people use their abilities in certain situations, like being really good with that. So yeah, just hyper focusing on all of these issues that I know are there, and like addressing with them one by one by one by one, that hopefully we can piece it all together and be the team that I know we can be.
Yeah, I think with your philosophy of how you want to, I suppose, plan your team structure, you're one of the only coaches, at least, that I've heard outwardly. I'm sure there are coaches in the Valorant scene themselves who have a similar sort of vision for what they want, but at least I think it's a very good thing to have, that kind of vision of where you want to take a team, a philosophy of what kind of direction you want to push them along, because it shows that you do have a direction you want to be moving in. There's a lot of wishy-washy coaches out there that maybe don't have the authority themselves. Like, they feel like they don't have the authority because they are just kind of like shoved into this role. Maybe they want to do it, maybe they don't. But the best coaches I find are the ones that actively want to be there, actively want to make something happen, have a vision of how they want to achieve it, which is everything you've got. So I am really looking forward to seeing Liquid moving forward into 2021. I've always been singing your guys' praises. Been Liquid's #1 simp
on the
for the
payroll.
Past couple of months. Yeah, on the payroll, as we've been saying.
Sliggy's been
You did
paying
that
him
big
under the
video.
table.
You did that big video and then crashed out in the quarterfinals.
Yep, unfortunately, you crashed out, but I was there. I was hyping you up. I was ready for the win,
Yeah, mad respect, honestly.
The UK mafia.
UK
runs
mafia,
deep.
exactly. Yeah, we don't have many good players in UK esports, so when I do find them, got to fucking cheer them on.
Yeah, but you've already chosen your side as Liquid rather than Summon so early on.
Well, I can have both.
Yeah,
I could have both.
can you? What happens when Liquid play against Summon like they did this weekend?
I'll just be conflicted. I'll be conflicted. Yeah, I spent time on this video, lots of time on this video. Honestly,
some might say too much time.
Yeah, too much time on this video. But yeah, I was well eager for your guys' performance.
I want to ask you a little bit. Has it been cool to see the UK scene pop off in Valorant with you guys playing against Summon, for example? I saw there was a bunch of banter in the chat going back and forth the entire match because they left the match chat on as well. And at some point, like, Summon's talking in the party chat too, ranting about one of you guys being in CT spawn or something, like talking to each other. It was so funny as a spectator to watch it going on, but it was clear that there's just a genuine, like, good-hearted rivalry between the two teams too.
Yeah, we're close mates with a lot of them. In terms of the UK scene, dude, it's so nice. That was one of the things we wanted to when we Fish 123. It was just like, guys, we're gonna we had like 6-7 years of just sucking in CSGO, and it's just like, and literally all I'm doing when I'm observing is I'm just watching these other teams, just looking at these flags constantly. It's always on my screen. I'm just like, why is this never a UK flag? Like, I need to. And then literally just like when it came to this, I was like, right, that's it. I was like, we're putting UK back on the map. Like, we need to do something about this. We're so in theory we're so bad at FPSs, at least in CSGO. Like, why have we never had 5 decent guys that just fully go for it and just have just the right attitude and just try and just change how bad it is for the UK. So yeah, it's a big driving force for me personally and some of our team to try and put UK back on the map. It's nice to see that it kind of I felt like it spread and gave a lot of belief to other UK players that they can do this and achieve this. So yeah, I'm really happy with how like what we achieved and how the UK scene reacted and kind of has taken to Valorant. So yeah, it's great. It's great to see. And I do the guys in the summon are great. Like Bosto, we played a lot of lands.
He's so funny
with each other and stuff. Yeah, dude, he's great. And like me and their coach. And even like the G2 coach, like I used to play with Nilzinho for like 2 years in Counter-Strike. So yeah, it's great to see all of them coming into play.
Yeah. It's coming home. It's coming home.
Yeah, maybe, possibly. I don't know. It would be interesting if they did a Valorant World Cup.
Yeah,
that would be.
We did it in Overwatch. I mean, the UK would have a very good shot of winning.
They'd have an incredible team. It would actually be hard to pick the UK team as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure people would want to put Fish 123 back together, but the 3 UK players from Summon are damn good as well. Yeah. It would be hard to make it.
Difficult, yeah. It's interesting. I mean, do you guys have any final questions you want to ask?
No, I don't think so.
Ready to wrap it up? Okay, yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Sliggy, for this episode of Backchat, man. It was a pleasure having you on. It's lovely to gain your sort of insight as well, behind the scenes knowledge, all sorts as well. If you want to follow Sliggy, you can see there. Wait, hold on. There. Yeah, there you go. You got a social media as well. Yeah, thanks for joining us.
No, thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it. And yeah, I love all your content, guys. So yeah, it's good to be on.
Wonderful, yeah. And if you guys want to see any future guests, again, leave a comment, see who you guys want us on next time. And we'll see you shortly for even more content on the Plat Valorant channel. See you then.